I didn't know what I wanted to do growing up because, it
Mhm.
all just seemed like the same stuff. What can I do that's different? My background growing up was welding, and that was because I was an only child growing up in the middle of nowhere. And
Welcome to Navigation and Discovery with Cameron Singh. Thank you so much for tuning in. On today's episode, we have Trenton Ray. And Trenton and I crossed paths many years ago, and then we circle back. We were able to reconnect, and Trenton is a corporate pilot. He flies multiple different types of aircraft, and also he recently started his own venture. He's co-founder of a company called Hangar Direct, and he's going to talk a little bit about that. And Trenton is just an awesome guy. He's going to talk a little bit about his journey and his start in aviation, and also his challenges and the great strides he's made on this new venture. I know the last couple episodes we've been talking a lot about entrepreneurship, and Trenton is another awesome entrepreneur that launched a great new product and company that is so much needed in the aviation industry. So I know we haven't talked aviation a lot on this podcast, and so this is it. This is going to be a good flavor of aviation, and if you're not an aviator, you're going to be learning a lot. So I really hope you enjoy learning Trenton's story, his journey of life so far, and a little bit of his entrepreneurial journey, and I really hope that you enjoy getting to know Trenton Ray. So I really hope you enjoy this podcast episode. Well, hey Trenton, happy to have you on the podcast, and thank you for taking the time to be on.
no, I appreciate it. I'm really looking forward to this.
Yeah, it's amazing how initially our paths crossed, and here we are a couple years later, chatting.
I know. No, this
Yeah,
is I'm pumped for this. Thanks for
yeah,
having me.
yeah, for sure. So Trent, it's good to have someone aviation on the podcast. I don't think I've had someone aviation. I might be mistaken, but tell us a little bit about how you started into aviation or where that passion came from.
For me, I fall into the really small category of chance. I didn't necessarily have a pathway to aviation. Um, I did a little bit, and we can get more into that. But my pathway to aviation was honestly via a baseball scholarship. There was some love for it. I used to draw planes when I was a kid. I think it was Microsoft 2010 from my grandmother, and I used to play around with that. But I knew I didn't have the funding to go and pursue being a pilot. But I knew that there was maybe other things in aviation that sparked my interest. But to be completely honest, it was purely by chance.
Mm.
Yeah, it's a funny story. I mean, I tried to drop out of college because I honestly didn't know what to do. I mean, this was like day three walking into a Division III college, basically on a kind of it's just it's an academic scholarship, trying to figure out what I want to do. And I don't know, I found out it wasn't for me, and so I tried to quit. Well, they were like, "Hey, we're trying to fill this program. It's called being a pilot. You ever thought about it?" I'm like, you know, well, hey, go take a free discovery flight. Drive back, let us know what you think. So I'm like, all right, well, I'm gonna get a free discovery flight. I'm gonna dip out of here. I was like, this is perfect. Well, anyway, long story short, I was driving about 100 miles an hour back to campus after I took that discovery flight, going, "Oh my God, that was crazy!" And that purely is how we get to becoming a pilot.
What really intrigued you about it when you first took that discovery flight?
I think it's I didn't know what I wanted to do growing up because it
Mhm.
all just seemed like the same stuff. What can I do that's different? My background growing up was welding, and that was because I was an only child growing up in the middle of nowhere, and so when I started pissing my parents off, my dad gave me a torch, and then there after the years of just like welding when I was bored, I became a welder. So it was purely something where I said, okay, nobody in my family is a pilot. There's no aviation background. This is a first thing for everybody, and this is different. Um, and what's really interesting is my kind of litmus test during this whole deal was being in college, still actually pursuing, playing baseball and having friends in finance, having friends in accounting, people who they become, teachers, coaches, whatever. And truly listening to them complain and just their doubt about their career choice, honestly, that fed the fire on what it wasn't that I knew it was the correct decision, but I knew based off of my peers, it was a much better decision than the pathway that they were taking. And that
Mm.
ultimately forms my, the basis of what I fed off of.
Yeah, that's really cool. So, once you finish, all your training and all that you needed to, like, what was your first actual like job, being a pilot?
There was this really crappy website. It's not crappy. It's just, it's very basic. It was people call it the orange website. It's called Climb to 350. I think people still use it, but
Yeah.
I remember, I mean, the story starts middle, like sophomore year in college. I'm on the only website that I know of that you can find jobs on, sitting there looking at time requirements to be a co-pilot on a jet, going, there's no way I'm ever going to get to this position. That's sophomore year. So, well, I think at the end of my sophomore year, I was already an instructor. And so you instruct a little bit through the summer, you play your junior year. They told me, hey, you have the chance to graduate early. And I was like, huh? All right. Well, I'm gonna get out of here. So I just went, graduated, instructed. And there was I just had a really, really bad day one day at the flight school, and I was like, there's gotta be, it's not there's gotta be something better. And because I was starting to hear from people like, it's not really about what you know, it's who you know, and it's not just like you as a pilot, but it's like, hey, somebody's not going to want to hire you if you are a pain in the rear on the road. And I'm like, okay, so it's just kind of like whoever gets along with who. Got on the orange site, saw a posting for a citation, co-pilot paying, I don't know, it was pennies. And I was just like, boom, submitted it, got a call. I think 3 weeks later I was actually in a simulator at CAE in Dallas,
Mm.
just feeding from the fire hose with like, 1,000 hours going, oh my God, what did I get myself into?
And then, what type of aircraft were you flying first?
So my first jet was it's called a Citation Ultra,
Uh-huh.
um, which honestly was a great jet. I mean, looking at it now, it's kind of like I could hop in it right now and just crank it up and fly. I mean, looking at it then, it was like looking up at Goliath, going, "Oh my God, this is insane." But no, truthfully, like they're like the three rules of aviation. I mean, the first one's fly a plane. Bigger the plane, so a lot of times the easier it is to fly. So it's just learning to adapt. I mean, it's easy. I mean, I tell people like some of when I was an instructor, some of the best students that I had were actually female aviators because flying isn't necessarily hand-eye coordination. I mean, we can make whatever argument you want there, but the fine details of aviation or paying attention to detail,
Mm-hmm.
most of the time women do that a lot better than men.
Mm-hmm.
And so I mean, and they're coming up right now. I mean, there's a ton of female aviators coming up. They're all good. I just tell people it can be done. I think there's a facade, and some folks are scared of flying. A lot of my discovery flights when I was an instructor were, I'm scared of flying. Can you crack it? I'm like, all right, famous last words, but and I don't know. It's all different strokes for different folks.
Mm-hmm.
The famous saying is quality of life, right? Um,
Yeah.
that is so different for each individual. You truly cannot define your own quality of life by listening to other people's stories or reading stuff on the internet because and we can get to that. It changes daily.
Mm-hmm. And then, so how old were you when you got your first corporate pilot job?
I was 21.
21. So you're 21
Hmm.
flying what was it, a CJ or citation?
It was, yeah, it was an ultra.
Yeah, Citation Ultra. And
Mhm.
then what are you flying today? What type of airplane?
So I fly right now. I'm current on a Phenom 300. I fly
Hmm.
that full time. It's really cool there is I'm single pilot, so the flight department is me. The issue there though is, if there's a problem or if I screw up, it's my problem because
Yeah.
it's just me. And then I'm also a contract pilot. Yeah, I fly a Citation XLS on the side. I've been flying that for shoot 5 years now.
For those that are non-aviators that are listening to this, I want to take if you can take us into kind of behind the lens of like your experience being a corporate pilot, because I every corporate pilot gig, of course, is different, right? And take us into like your journey because you've probably been to some amazing places, had some like really awesome experiences. Tell us a little bit about that journey so far.
So corporate kind of spoiled me. I started off in corporate. I bounced around a little bit. And I went to the airlines thinking that, following this quality life pursuit, that was a choice. Really all to realize that it was exactly the opposite. Winding myself back here. But there's more than two options in aviation. It's not just private and airlines. There's so much more fuel to the fire. But
Mm-hmm.
it just comes down to what you want and how much, it all takes effort, but it takes, one side takes effort more, in particular areas than the other, right? So like with the airlines, obviously you're going to have absolutely no passenger connection. Really, those guys, they don't need to know anything other than how many souls are on board, right? I mean, that's it. With us, like we have to be concerned with, okay, who's like, are they bringing their wife? Like, shoot, maybe she has a gluten allergy. I mean, like, we're talking stuff that is just so,
Mm-hmm.
it and it comes natural. But I will say is in my scope, the connections are worth more, especially over time, than within corporate, than what you might find or get at the airlines. Now, once again, that's not really a valid argument because the airlines, I mean, that is a steady-ish career path. I mean, you still face, the negative market sentiment that happens in the airline industry all the time, but people want that stepping, that step ladder. And
Mm-hmm.
great, go for it. So, back to different strokes for different folks. I still think, network is worth everything. I mean, you can use that network to not only help yourself out, but if you get in trouble, I mean, there's so much more to just flying these people on an 8 passenger jet. And it's just the relationships. I mean, some people don't want to grow those relationships, which I completely understand because it can be exhausting, but it pays off
Mm-hmm.
100%.
What do you enjoy the most about being a corporate pilot?
Um, I would probably say the relationship aspect. I
Mm.
have gained so much from the people I've flown. I mean, it's whether it's helped me out in life or just like the connections that you make. I mean, some of my closest friends have been contract pilots that I met on the road that I had never met from Adam, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then now you're in a cockpit, 12 inches away from each other, breathing on each other. I mean, that's where aviation is really cool. And it's also tiny. I mean, the good side of that is, I was in Teterboro a couple months ago. I ran into, a homie of mine in SoCal, and I'm like, "What are you doing here?" He's like, well, "I should be asking you the same. What are you doing here?" But also, the downside of that is you have to be straight. I mean, there's no bad mouthing. It's a
Yeah.
tiny community, and you will burn bridges.
Mm.
So, like I tell people, if you can't burn a bridge, like if that's just not in your blood, you'll be successful.
Mm-hmm.
It's a market you can capitalize on, and it just purely comes down to how much effort you want to put into it.
What would you say? Also, with private aviation or corporate aviation, you get a chance to go to some really cool places. What are some of the like your top couple places that you've your favorites that you've been to?
Man, I would probably say we'll start off with well, Seychelles, like we flew there. I mean, it's over there like in the Mediterranean. I mean, uh, I'll put Montenegro in that bucket. I was a co-pilot a long time
Wow.
ago on a Falcon 900, and I remember I saw Montenegro on the schedule, and I was like, "What's that?" So I mean, St. Lucia is like a wonderful, reachable place. My heart is honestly just in Cabo. Just that, I mean, that's personally where I got married. But it's
Yeah.
funny because I live here in Austin. Austin's a great place. I do love this place. I'm actually born and raised here, unlike about 99% of people here. But it's funny because my wife's a realtor. She's tied, kind of to the market here in town, and every time I wake up, just whether it's the traffic or I mean, change. There's tons of change going on here. It's not bad though. Just like anybody else, you wake up and you're sick of it. But I go anywhere else cool. I mean, you name it in the United
Mhm.
States, it's a cool city, whether it's hip, whatever, first time job. You go there, you come back to Austin, and you're just like, it's not that bad. So it allows me to just, I don't know, it gives me some comfort, I guess. But
Yeah.
no, it's great. It can also be exhausting. I mean, if you can't pace yourself, then I mean, like, it's not necessarily, I mean, like drinking. It's like, hey, you just went from the East Coast to West Coast, and you're trying to hop on the plane next morning to, you know, fly up another jet from Washington to Miami. I mean, it's if you don't take care of your body, that's where you can really find the issue. But you're also kind of chasing a high, right?
Yeah.
I mean, like it's like a contract pilot that is like one of the most fun slash horrifying times of any pilot's career where you're chasing money that you've honestly never seen before, but at any given point that you're gonna be so exhausted you won't be able to wake up, or the phone's gonna stop ringing.
Mhm.
Um, but it's a healthy industry.
Yeah. So I wanted to go a little bit in your entrepreneurship journey because I know you're an avid entrepreneur beyond your primary job, which is flying as a pilot. Um, why did you want to pursue entrepreneurship along with being or flying?
For me, it was I always looked at, I mean, shoot, 8 years ago, I probably couldn't even tell you what entrepreneurship was. Everything all kind of starts as a hobby for me, and where that comes from is, I got some really awesome opportunities at a really young age to fly some, cool metal like Falcons and Gulfstreams and all this stuff. And I learned from some really, really smart people. I mean, some I got along with better than others, but you got to look at the people that I've contracted with, and it's if you just listen, and I soak up everything, and so you just in your head you discover over the years of, okay, oh, that could probably be done better if it was done this way, and then all of a sudden you have this idea on a way that could, and you're just trying to like help make things more linear for like maybe you're doing the books or something, and then you
Mhm.
create some sort of process, and you're like, oh, whoa, and then you kind of fumble it around with your buddies, and you're like, hey, what do you think about this? And they're like, wow. So that's, I mean, entrepreneurship, I guess, it kind of just comes from me like trying to help myself out first. Like, okay, how can we do this that just makes this better? Whether it's like emailing owners or pilots or invoicing or, just like, but there's tons of platforms out there for that. And so, yeah, I mean, as far as like Hangar Direct goes, I mean that was like, I guess, the first time where we kind of put our foot down and we were like, okay, let's do this kind of thing. And so yeah, that was a big moment.
Yeah, so tell us a little bit about well first tell us a little bit about that venture Hangar Direct. What is that?
So think of it just like a marketplace where it could be like VRBO, Airbnb. It could be there's tons of just marketplaces where you can purchase space from any individual for any given amount of time. And so all this is a way for people to basically say, okay, I have a hangar. It doesn't have a plane in it, there is this massive hangar shortage going on right now. If I take 5 photos and post it on the internet, somebody could rent it for, $1,000 a month. They could pay for it with a credit card and then park their plane. And then everybody's happy. And so this was just a way for people to say, okay, I need a hangar tonight, right? How am I going to do that? Well, good luck. And this all dates back to about 2 years ago when I landed in Minnesota. Um, and it was a super long day. I didn't really do maybe as much due diligence as I should have, like checking the weather, for instance, like that. Okay, so the weather getting there that day is great, right? Well, if you're there for the weekend, look at the weekend weather. Well, of course, that's what I didn't do. There was a crazy storm that hit, and I had no idea until the next day when, I started getting notifications on my phone going, oh, snap, this is going to be a big deal. Well, what do you do when you need a hangar, right? I've got
Mm.
some guys, $5 million asset. I'm a contract pilot, right? I'm not even an employee of the company. I'm filling in for some guy who's sick. I'm in Minnesota. You need a hangar. You pick up the phone and you start calling. And it's honestly a miserable process because you go into it knowing that you're probably not going to get hangar space, right? Because
Hmm.
you're probably, you know, in line with the other 15 people who waited last minute to call at the same time. And essentially that's the situation that I ran into was there was no hangar space, but if you pay $1,000 a night, we'll put you in a hangar. And so that ultimately led me having to pay out of pocket for that because the owner would not reimburse me. Which that relationship has since sailed away. But it's like it's $1,000. It was a wake up call. We went, oh my God. So what do? Okay, it's market validation. Well, first we thought, surely this exists. I mean, Airbnb has been around. I mean, that type of market structure, whatever, I mean, it exists. It's not like we're reinventing the wheel by any means, but we couldn't find anything, nothing. And when you search for hangar space on the internet, I mean, you can't really find anything about any hangar space anywhere other than the wait list is what 5 to 8 years. And so we set out for a way to basically create a source of truth for hangar space that gives you the ability to transact. And it's the our ultimate goal. I mean, we've our ultimate goal from day one is just purely to help because the community does not actually have any sort of second alternative, right? There, you have one route, which is a broken route, and there is no safe second alternative unless you happen to know everybody. Even
Hmm.
if you know everybody, that doesn't necessarily put you ahead. And so we're just trying to make everything visible to create some sort of fair market that ultimately helps. And so that, a storm doesn't come through and just, rains a bunch of hail on your plane, which, happens. And some
Hmm.
people may only need a hangar for 2 or 3 days or 2 or 3 nights a year, right? I mean, we're not trying to capture any specific, time frame. It's purely just like, hey, these are individuals that want to help, and here's a way to transact. And so yeah, we're really excited about it.
Well, cool. Yeah, this is very exciting because this is pretty much, I guess, to recap it for those that are listening, it's really an Airbnb for hangars. You need to reposition, let's say, to, I don't know, San Jose, California, and you need some hangar space for a night or two. Hangar Direct is like your go-to, and hopefully you can find space there, and you book it just like an Airbnb, which is pretty sweet.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um.
It's
Yeah.
we're stoked. I mean, we just launched December 18th. We have so much work to do. We also have a
Hmm.
lot of ton of cool stuff coming out.
Yeah.
Really the coolest part about this is it's free. The cost to well, there is a little bit of a transactional fee. I mean, it's nothing, but the use of our platform is free.
Hmm. So I want to go back into your early days of Hangar Direct when the idea came, and all the way up to this date. What were some of the challenges starting this new venture of Hangar Direct?
I would say um, probably the aviation industry overall, except for, and I say that our biggest qualm would be the slow adoption rate. But you would think, I mean, obviously the adoption rate aviation is going to be slower. I mean, you're not dealing with vehicles here. You're dealing with, things that are metal tubes that are flying through the air, right? So obviously, it takes a while for planes to get certified. I mean, shoot, we're still using 19, what, 50, 60 technology magnetos that might even be older, right? But it's a system that works. So it's the adoptability. You can go out and tell people it doesn't matter if it's hangars or airplanes. I mean, it doesn't matter how good your product is. Ultimately, it's how are you going to, I guess, help solve a problem?
Hmm.
Um, and so, other than that, pilots, you love them to death, and can't live with them, can't live without them. I mean, super critical, but we need critical, and I say that because this is community. This is a community platform. It's built by opinions. It's built by what you need. Every hangar is different, right? Some people, hate the fact that they have to upload a profile picture, and I say, hey, dude, I get it. Just take a black screenshot on your phone and just, upload it, right? But then we take everything open door and we just feed that into some form of system, and that's how we're managing to build something that we, hope continues to help everybody out.
Yeah, what were some other challenges, like even from coming up with the idea and even getting the platform set up? Like what were some of those challenges?
Um, we got really lucky with the development side.
Uh-huh.
I found my partner, my business partner. He's not a pilot. He's a software engineer, and that's kind of how we've made this work. Is because he doesn't know hardly anything about aviation. I mean, obviously now he does, but I have no background in tech, and so we've been able to, I guess, not only stay in each other's lanes, but I guess just use our. I don't know. It's like I don't. Yeah, I don't. He's the CTO guy. I'm, I guess right now head of sales. But the hardest part, I mean, would also be prime example. Um, I'm not afraid to admit that we're not the first to have this idea. There have been four groups, people, entities, whatever you want to call it, that have tried to produce this same thing that we're doing. And the hardest part there has been reaching out to them saying, hey, I'm friendly. I'm recognizing that, you got there before I did. What happened? You know,
Hmm.
some are more reluctant to respond than others. And quite honestly, a lot of it came down to timing.
What is one thing that you wish you would have known before going on this journey of starting Hangar Direct? One thing you would have known
Uh,
to know before.
Perfection is poison. And it if it doesn't destroy your platform, it'll destroy your mental health. And this is definitely a lead in more so to like a question about advice or whatever. But um, there is no perfection. I mean, look at talking to the people that I work for at the firm. I mean, how many half-baked launches that we've seen hit the market that have gone and sold for insane multiples. And so okay, if your idea, let's look at your project, right? Everybody thinks their idea is better than others. If you truly believe in it, you will probably be successful. I mean, an
Mm.
idea is great. It's all execution, and I wish we executed sooner. I think we could have have a much bigger user base right now. I mean, when we're sitting at almost 300, could we have been at 500? But it's also sitting there and playing the what ifs game. I mean, it all just comes down to, I mean, if you truly have faith in it and you're throwing money at something physical, I mean, yeah, you will have success. It's really interesting. I mean, the amount of, I don't know what the saying is, but it's like the amount of ideas and that have converted, been executed. I mean, That's all it comes down to. Not to say that people tried to execute this idea, and that's kind of sort of what I was trying to bring to light in the last question. But you know, there's just so many factors.
Mm. Yeah, you're so right though. You really have to believe in it yourself in order to just give it a go, because I think there's a lot of people trying entrepreneurship. What if this? What if that? What
Hmm.
if this? But what if you never tried? Then you would have never known.
Right. No, that's exactly right. And it's relatively easy to do. I mean, anybody can go on and create a business. I mean, shoot,
Yeah.
I if I had known 5 years ago that using a registered agent is aka going online typing in a website. I mean, you're just wasting your time and money and brain cells. Just create an LLC, do it in 5 minutes, and then if you need a team, find it, throw some money at it, and if
Hmm.
you like you said truly believe in it. I mean, the scariest part is just doing it, right? I mean, we
Yeah.
can all sit here around a campfire and talk about ideas all day, but there's a small percentage of just overall execution there.
Yeah. So, speaking of advice, like what other advice would you provide to for those that are listening that are just thinking about entrepreneurship? They love their job, right? But they're like, man, I want to do something more. I want to have this idea. I enjoy it, but there's always been those like what ifs.
Hmm. Um, my, I would say the biggest, if I could give any advice, it would be, and I say this because this was my biggest question during this entire thing, which it's honestly not anymore. But it's funny how it works is don't seek funding until you absolutely need it.
Mm,
And that goes to say with I tried to do this before we even launched, before, while we were developing. And luckily I got some consulting on the side that's, they're like, why give away IP in something that doesn't even exist yet? Right. And that is the beauty of us being able to bootstrap and pay for this ourselves so far as we've it it puts a different, I guess, emotion into it. And it needs to be like that emotion needs to be felt because that kind of compounds with, okay, do you love your product? Do you believe in your product? Well, if you have that, and then the third one is if you have money in your product, I mean, that alone. But I've gotten this response time and time again, not just why do you need money? It's, are you sure? I mean, because you're unlocking the potential to, people think positivity when I get funding, but it opens you up to honestly more negative, you know, possible outcomes than it does positive. And so, here we are almost year two. I was trying to source funding month eight, right? And now, our viewpoints have changed. And so I think that my ultimate, piece of advice there would solely be wait until your mental health is in the toilet. You need funding for either like bandwidth, right? Just mental power, etc. Or you just can't keep up with it. But if you're purely trying to pursue funding just to speed up the process, you're gonna funk.
mm. And then how do you balance that personal professional life? Because you also fly, you're also married, yeah, you also have a social life, and then you're also doing Hangar Direct.
It's my life is insane. It's I take the breaks. I mean, I take advantage of them as much as possible. Recently, while we've been building this platform, I've tried to I've picked up my contract flying, just trying to just bring in capital where we need it. But yeah, I mean, ultimately, I would like to release one of those things so that I can obviously focus on this more, but also I still need to go and do my honeymoon. So that's top of the list right now.
Any other lessons learned so far through this journey?
um I would say, and this is more so encouragement, don't if you want to go, whether it's like let's say flying, for example, pick a direction and stay the course because aviation changes daily. And the famous saying is like the airlines change daily and corporate changes, or no, the airlines change monthly and the corporate jobs change daily. Honestly, right now where we're at, the airlines change every minute and corporate changes daily. So, everybody used to brag about the airlines, this, that, and the other. I don't know. I mean, corporate's pretty cool. Look at this crazy pilot shortage, right? I wonder where they're finding their pilots. Probably corporate, not the cadet programs, not ATP, right? I mean, sure they are, but no, you're getting qualified guys that have turbine time, 2, 3 thousand hours. They're gonna walk on, do a year somewhere, and then they're at the major. And so what's happening to all of our guys is quality of life that everybody talks about. It goes up. And so I always tell people, if you like, whether it's corporate or aviation, pick it, because you know every 5 years it drastically changes. I mean, I don't know if five is the correct number, but right now, corporate, in my opinion, is probably better. I may be a little biased, but in a couple of years, the airlines is probably going to be back to where it was before, which is better. And so I just say, don't listen to the noise,
Mm.
because you're walking into. It is one of the coolest industries, and it's also one of the most cyclical industries. And that's it's kind of a market that runs on the market, right? It kind of runs on FUD. I mean, fear, uncertainty, and doubt, and that it's fueled by it. But not to say it's a stable industry as well.
Hmm. Well, awesome. Well, as we kind of wrap up, Trenton, just wanted to go through some of these rapid fire questions that I have, just so our listeners
Mm.
can get to know you a bit more. What is it that you do to like grow and develop yourself?
Um, I just by flying, being a contract pilot, I meet so many cool people, fly so many cool people. I mean, it's not just people in the cockpit; it's the guys in the back. Majority of them are, I mean, all of them are, from my experience, have been great gravy people. And so it's just listening. I mean, you're
Mm.
in a cash flow, a cash heavy environment. All you got to do is listen, or ask questions. I mean, these guys, some of them love questions. Hey, text me, any time of the day. If you got something, right? I mean, that's definitely, other than waking up every morning and searching the same 4 or 5 websites, including Facebook, of just
Yeah.
any drama or just what's for sale. I mean, you got to stay in the channel somehow, and then it can be excruciating, but it is what it is.
Yeah. Dead or alive, who'd you like to have lunch with?
Jack Black,
Why is that?
yeah, maybe with like a Bob Ross backdrop. I don't know. I mean, he doesn't get as much credit as he deserves. I would say Matthew McConaughey, but that would just be for like pure entertainment. But like as far as like actually sitting down and having dinner, 100% Jack Black.
All right. What is the next thing that you like to do next on your bucket list?
Um, Probably just manage a full blown flight department. I love managing planes. I manage an aircraft now. I've managed multiple aircraft in the past. I've never truly captured, and had a full flight department. I love management. I mean, all that means is making sure that the plane's on a ramp, ready to go. It's got fuel, it's got stock, and it's got pilots, right? Probably venture back into I really want to capitalize there. And this Hangar Direct kind of stemmed off of, a possible, management style development platform. But I mean, there's just so many great platforms out there that already exist, going back to okay, we couldn't find anybody that already done this.
Hmm.
And so, yeah, that I gotta cap it back in aviation.
What's the best words of advice or best wisdom that you have received so far?
So when I was in my flight training a long time ago, when I was 18, I had just everybody has bad flight training stories. Well, my private pilot instructor, he was every bit of, I don't know, 78 maybe. Uh, and I'm walking in there. I'm 18 years old. I'm in college to play baseball. So you can imagine the mindset that I had there. He goes, you want to make a lot of money in aviation? Of course I'm like, uh-huh. And he goes, you got to have 3 jobs. And I was like, and so that kind of, and I remember where I was, I was sitting at a desk in this conference room, and I just remembered every day. And I mean, here I find myself in the position, which is true. I mean, multiple jobs doesn't necessarily mean like, you're going to have absolutely no free time. It's just, aviation is one of those really cool industries where you can kind of dabble in a little bit of everything. It just kind of comes down to what you want. And so, for my 3 jobs, that's, I'm a full-time pilot, on that Phenom. I manage, a jet. I'm a contract pilot. And then, I guess if we want to throw in the fourth, it's, now this Hangar Direct venture. And so that really stuck with me. I mean, I still kind of joke with people about that to this day because, I thought that he was just full of it. And, that's probably been some of the most truthful advice I've ever gotten.
Well, cool. Well, Trenton, this was an amazing conversation. Really enjoyed really hearing a little bit about your career journey and also your journey into starting Hangar Direct, and hearing your journey of entrepreneurship and how that came about. So thank you for sharing your thoughts on that.
Oh yeah, no, it's, I don't know. There's a facade that, it's hard. And I think the hardest part is just doing it.
hmm I'm sure people would maybe want to ask questions or, pick your brain on entrepreneurship. What's the best way to kind of connect with you?
I mean, connect me with, I'm on social media. I mean, I respond to Facebook, Instagram,
hmm
LinkedIn. A lot of people have been finding me on LinkedIn, but really anyway, yeah, I connect. I mean, I've got a guy taking a discovery flight, at the end of this week. I had somebody got me a discovery flight, right? It was actually the
hmm
school, but a buddy's friend, wanted to get in aviation. I said, well, hey, look, somebody did this for me. I'm gonna help you out. Here you go. So I would, yeah, I would love to connect with everybody. I mean, my goal is to be as deep in the community as possible to,
Yeah.
I mean, get this off the ground. But it's a really cool community.
It is. It is for sure. Well, thank you so much, Trenton, and best of luck in your journey with, especially with Hangar Direct. I think you're on a good path, and it's really awesome to see all the great strides you all are making with Hangar Direct.
No, and I appreciate it. And I really do appreciate you having me on here. This was a blast.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks. Well, thank you so much for tuning in to Navigation and Discovery with Cameron Singh. This was an awesome, amazing interview with Trenton, and I hope you were able to learn more about his story, his journey in aviation, and really took some takeaways. I know there's a lot of aviation lingo and terms on here, but I really hope that you just learned from someone from a different background, different story, a little bit of entrepreneurship, and Hangar Direct, the company that he co-founded, is just been an amazing person to learn from and glean from. So I really hope that you had some awesome takeaways learning from his story, and for someone that's so young and accomplished so much, including starting his own venture, which has really taken off. It's been some time since we did this recording, and it's really, his company Hangar Direct is growing and growing and growing. And really hope that you were able to have some awesome takeaways. And if this is your first time tuning into this podcast, feel free to subscribe on whichever platform you're listening on, and check out the YouTube channel. Also follow the podcast on social media. You can go to the links in the podcast description on whichever platform you're listening on. I post clips of the podcast, and also, if you want to connect with me wherever you are listening across the globe, wherever you are, if you want to reach out, connect, or even if you're interested in being a guest on the podcast, feel free to send me an email, singhcameron@outlook.com, or go to my website, that's cameronsingh.com. Also, if you haven't gotten a copy of my book, Navigation and Discovery, which is truly the heart behind where this podcast started, you can go to my website, cameronsingh.com, get a copy of my first ever book that I released last year. It's been amazing to see the impact that the story for navigation and discovery has helped people in different areas of their lives: faith, their career, being a student, various topics I talk about in that book. And if you have read the book, have gotten a copy, and you think you might need to gift it to someone, also head over to the website. There's all different formats you can get the book on. It's also on Audible, and it's also on Kindle. And also there's the PDF version that I just give to you, and if you want MP3 files are on there available as well. CameronSingh.com. Get your copy today. Would appreciate your support, and if you would be so generous to go on there as well, check it out. If you're willing to donate to the cause of what I'm working on, not only with this podcast, but with the first book, and now putting the second book, if you feel that you need to would like to help contribute more to the efforts that I'm pursuing and really help get this message spread across to a wider audience, feel free to add in some extra donation. Would definitely appreciate any support for what the work that I'm doing. Would be very, very helpful for not only this podcast, but to really help with the first book and the second book, which launches in the summer. So thank you again so much for tuning in to today's episode. Feel free to comment, share, give a rating, whatever you can to help get this message shared and get this awesome content shared. And go back and take a look at some of the previous episodes. Have had some amazing guests on so far, and more awesome guests to come. I've been working tirelessly on some amazing, awesome, high quality interviews, just to get the interviews better and better and better. So thank you again, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your week, and thank you again for tuning in. Take care.